screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at Wednesday's top stories. I'm Simon Evans. Tonight I'm joined by QAnon devotee Leo Kearse and Kew Gardens enthusiast Steve N. Allen. I think that's done very well, although you're wearing the Kew Gardens shirt.
Yeah, I've actually got a membership. I've got a family membership for Kew Gardens.
It's a great place to go.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. Especially, but no, I'm not going to say...
So's the QAnon conference.
The funniest place in Kew Gardens, I think, is the Princess Diana Memorial Cactus. It's such a weird tribute, but it genuinely, I guess it was probably created before she died, but it just seems like such an odd thing. It's very 80s. It's a bit like the Lotus Elite that goes underwater. It has a certain sort of aesthetic that hasn't moved on. Anyway, there's a rabbit hole. I didn't see myself going down. Let's have a look at the front pages. The Daily Mail kick off with victory for the bravest head teacher in Britain. That's not her picture, though. That's Angela Rayner. Telegraph, leadership hopefuls defy Sunak over smoking ban. And there is our Nige in Brussels. Guardian, Tory divisions exposed as Sunak's smoking ban moves a step closer. And the Times, police look at multiple allegations over Rayner. There she is, fully colorised. And iNews, Sunak gives Netanyahu a warning from world leaders. And finally, the Daily Star, as ever, go a little off-piste with plucky Star Lettuce is part of evil London elite. Well, there we are. Those were your front pages. So, starting with the Times, Leo.
So this is Angela Rayner. The police investigate multiple allegations now. So the police investigation into Angela Rayner is examining multiple allegations and is not limited to potential electoral law offences. Apparently she was also running a crack den in Manchester and she shot Harambe. No, that's a little joke there, just in case her lawyers...
Which one of the two was the joke?
So...
Awkward.
So, but yeah, there's they've listed apparently a dozen police officers are working on it, which shows that there must not be much crime in Manchester anymore. If this is their priority, somebody, possibly, potentially diddling a couple of grand of... I mean, some of the issues that she's facing are possibly capital gains tax. So if it was her main address, as she's claimed, she would not have had to pay capital gains tax. But, if it wasn't, then she would. Also, there's a single-person discount on, council tax.
Council
and stuff
tax,
like that,
that's right.
Which,
yeah.
Her brother was apparently, or is alleged to have been living there, and she was claiming the 25% discount, and that could amount to council tax fraud.
I mean, a lot of people, this is going to be the most relatable Angela Rayner has ever been, isn't it? With the people, the amount of council tax and so on you're supposed to pay.
Well, that's the thing. I've got so much sympathy for her because she says she took tax advice and legal advice, and I believe that she did. And these things are sort of sometimes blurry areas, but at the same time, the government takes all this money off you, so people do look for ways to avoid paying that tax. The thing is, though, they're taking the money off you to pay for all the stupid things that Angela Rayner and other people in the Labour Party want us to pay for.
As you say, it's a little bit like when you go to the parties at number 10. It was like, the point isn't did they have a party, is that the rest of us should have been having a party as well, isn't it? But, I mean, I suppose there is a kind of... there is a little bit of what's good... What's the expression? There's an expression with the goose.
For the goose?
Yeah, sauce for the goose, yeah. Is that how you feel about it?
I don't think it's not a cooking crime that she's done. No, I think what's happened here is this should have been made to go away ages ago. Because it was such a small thing. She could have said, oh, yeah, sorry, I thought I should have said this. Here's your $3,000. Because that's the kind of money we're talking about. But instead, the attitude is, oh, we in the Labour Party have such a tough time with the bias in the media. By print media, that's absolutely true. But instead of just admitting that's the world you live in, make it go away, really dig your feet in, and then look what happens. They're working out if you shouldn't have had a single person's allowance in your council tax. Next thing, they'll be tracking it down. Oh, she used a parent and child bay once, but a kid went in the car. It's becoming a witch hunt now.
Nobody would do that, Steve.
Oh, come on.
I do think it reminds everyone of Beergate, wasn't it, when they were trying to sort of swing that back onto Starmer out of Curry and Durham or something, and it's the same thing thing where they go, if there is a remote taint against my reputation, I will resign. I mean, I think, well, there probably is likely to be that now, and that would be bad timing for the election. Right?
Yeah, and it seems a shame that we always seem to bring politicians down with this sort of minor flim-flam instead of real stuff.
Absolutely correct. The Daily Mail, Steve, what have they got?
Victory for the bravest head teacher in Britain is their headline. This is Catherine Birbal Singh, which it says she's been called the Britain's strictest head teacher by herself. Yeah, to be fair, which, you know, that's the way it goes. But this is about the school prayer ban was upheld after a pupil lost a High Court challenge. But don't worry, it will not impact their pocket money because we paid for this through legal aid, so enjoy. The judge dismissed the Muslim pupils' claim that the policy that they had in this Michaela Community School was discriminatory. What I love about it, if you get through into the details, the ruling is you knew what you were getting into, basically. It's known as the strict school, and you know what the rules are. So of all the schools that you are going to stick to the rules, it'll be a strict one. The rules are that you don't get to do this praying. Yeah. That you're, however they phrased it, the showing of your religious faith will be in some way curtailed. You knew about it. Then the mum still sues. And here's the best bit. The mum also has another child who's going to go to this school. Yeah. And there's another court case where I think we found the mega Karen. Yeah, yeah. If you know this is happening.
That's right. That is extraordinary that they have made it. And this is one of the most oversubscribed schools in the country. Yeah. It's a state school which achieves results that a lot of private schools would absolutely kill for. Yeah. It's incredibly successful with its children, with its pupils. It's not just about strictness, not just about morals. Their GCSE grades are off the scale. And she wants all of that, and yet she still wants to interfere with how the place is run. The mother I'm talking about.
Yeah, so these Muslim pupils wanted to go to this school that had a set of rules that made it successful and prosper. And then once they were there, they wanted to change those rules. Yeah. And I wonder if there's some sort of parallel.
But I know what you're saying, but the reason these rules are imposed is, in fact, largely for the benefit of other Muslim pupils who don't want to have to feel that they need to go to prayer 5 times a day, that there is some kind of, the peer pressure. So do you see what I mean? It's not like, I mean, there's like a Muslim majority within that school that are happy with the Michaela rules as well. So
keep religion out of education.
Yeah, absolutely. Guardian, Leo.
So the Guardian has the Tory divisions exposed as Sunak smoking ban moves a step closer. So the MPs vote for the smoking ban despite the Tories' division over the policy. So Rishi Sunak has suffered a blow to his authorities. 57 of his own MPs voted against his plan and over 100 abstained. I mean, it still went through 383 to 67 in favour of the Prime Minister's plan to make it illegal for anyone born in 2009 or later to buy tobacco products in the UK. It's a weird thing for Rishi Sunak to push through. I mean, the Tories used to be seen as the party of libertarian economics and also sort of libertarian values for a bit after the 70s or so, and for this sort of draconian law where it's quite a nanny state law saying, oh, you're not ever going to be allowed to smoke. I mean, they should do this with hard drugs and ban hard drugs. Then nobody would use hard drugs.
But then the argument, I think you made a really good point there. That I think even Liz Truss in an interview was saying it seems quite babyish telling people that they can't smoke. Well, finish that sentence with marijuana, and you've just argued against yourself. It's odd that, pick a side on it, is how I'd feel. Either you think you should be able to do everything, or we should restrict.
It's interesting, there's a chap I follow on Twitter called Post-Liberal Pete, and he says, I think correctly, that it's people don't even register it consciously, but some things, some drugs, if you like, are coded right and some are coded left. Tobacco, being allowed to smoke tobacco is coded right. That's a right-wing policy. Yeah. And marijuana is coded left. And there's been a reversal lately which reflects the degree to which left liberal, capture of institutions and our general sort of what we consider to be like default morality is that marijuana is actually, we've been a bit draconian about that, but tobacco, they're coming down on. It's also class coded, though. There's no question about it. Most people who still smoke tobacco, they definitely.
Well, the system is definitely going to legalise marijuana because it makes people apathetic and less prone to challenge challenging the system. Whereas, you know, they'll stop a man, they'll crush the little man who wants to smoke some crack and fight the system.
Before we leave this story, I'm going to say the best thing's going to happen in the future, where someone gets age checked for being 54. As the age goes up.
Well, people will be getting their granddad to go in and buy tobacco. I mean, this will happen. It's absolutely, I mean, it's obviously ridiculous. It might be a transitional phase, but it's so ridiculous and unworkable, even Jacinda Ardern, you know, back down on it, right? Or Ardern or whatever her name was. We will be the laughingstock, I think, of the world. Anyway. Ending with this section, the Daily Star, Steve.
The Lettuce Liz, plucky Daily Star lettuce, is part of the evil London elite. She's been asked in various interviews about the lettuce because, you know, it's the thing that hangs around her neck. It lasted longer than she did. She said it was London elite, a cabal of London elitists. No, they're not the people who read the Daily Star. Surely not. I don't hang out with a lot of London liberal elites,
So
but I don't
she
think
asked
they're Daily Star
specifically about the lettuce. She said the lettuce was a function of the elite.
Yes, the way in which she's being attacked. The thing I think is strange about her, that I think she might have some sort of issue that needs looking into. If you think everyone who disagrees with you has formed a coalition, you know, the anti-growth coalition, they're ganging up against me. She said, when questioned about being PM, she says, I was facing an impossible task. Yeah, no one's ever managed to be the Prime Minister before.
Well, I will say, devil's advocate maybe, but perhaps being the victim of effectively a coup after about 6 weeks in power... might give you, some justifiable access to paranoid suspicions about people ganging up on you,
She could have headed off that coup by funding. She announced all these tax cuts. She didn't say how she's going to fund them. Like, come in, like Javier Milei. He doesn't announce tax cuts first. He's like, I'm getting afuera. I'm getting rid of all you useless communists. And, like, he did that. How come Argentina gets Javier Milei and we get Liz Truss?
That is a very good question. Those are the front pages fronted up. In part 2, we have the failure of the world's stupidest legislation. We'll see you there.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
I don't think you can go and watch a Shakespeare play unless you already know it. It's almost like you have to understand the story and the characters, and perhaps have even done a bit of reading into it. Because if you went completely blind, especially in today's world where we don't speak in that kind of way, it is, I think, probably a bit alienating.
But Dawn is saying it is alienating at the moment because of the lack of representation.
You know what, the actual phrasing they use, right, OK, the disproportionate representation propagated white, able-bodied, heterosexual, cisgender male narratives. I'm sure there's people sitting in a room going, what's the most ridiculous thing we can come up with today? But are really just chuck all these words at it, cisgender, and it's just insane. Of course, Shakespeare was what it was back in the day, and that's why it's mostly blokes and they're mostly white.
And lots of speculation that he was actually gay, isn't there? Because he never really saw Anne Hathaway very often and stayed away a lot of the time. I don't know, maybe he was a big
He might have been transgender for all I know. I mean, I don't...
Biggins, I'm looking at you.
No, I think you're right. I mean, I think that goes for the profession too. I mean, I do think I mean, I remember seeing Macbeth in London with Judi Dench and Ian McKellen, and it was one of the most exciting evenings ever. And it was a cold night at the Donmar Theatre, outside and inside, and that gave it atmosphere. There are certain things that you go along and see something else, and you think, I'll walk out in the interval.
Macbeth is a sexy play, though.
Let's talk about... there's so many. Can I live to be 100?
Oh, this is depressing.
I think it is depressing. I like to stay here now. I don't want to live to 100.
Oh, don't say that.
I'm right behind you.
I don't even want to. My father died at 63. That'll be me gone this year.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans, with me Leo Kirst, Steve N. Allen, to look at tomorrow's newspapers. So we kick off, Leo, with a big story for the GB News crowd in the Express as Brussels sprouts state interference in free speech, etc.
Very nicely done. So, yeah, this is about the National Conservative Conference in Brussels. It was shut down with a siege by the police. And the Brussels official, the mayor of Brussels, who tried to cancel the conference while Nigel Farage was on, actually hosted an ultra-radical Iranian politician. So this is socialist Philippe Close, or Close probably, because it's...
Closer. Used to play for Germany.
He pressured the venue hosting NatCon to shut the event down, but last year he hosted the mayor of the Iranian capital at Brussels Town Hall. And he's not just a mayor in Iran, he's a serious guy. He's been placed under sanctions by the UK because he's involved in the commission of serious human rights violations or abuses in Iran, where, you know, the authorities have been shooting young women for not wearing headdresses, for example.
just for people who might not be fully up to speed with the story itself, what was the nature of the National Conservative Conference and why were they closed down, do you think?
So basically the National Conservative Conference was a conservative conference with speakers such as Nigel Farage and...
was Suella there?
Suella was there, I believe, also Matt Goodwin. So, you know, actual real conservatives, as opposed to, you know, the Conservative Party in the UK, which is basically the Labour Party from 5 years ago.
And the National Conservative Conference, they're particularly concerned about immigration and especially illegal immigration.
Yeah, this has been a huge thing across Europe. So, you know, we've seen a big tilt to the right across Europe as they've sort of woken up to the reality of their idealistic policies around not just immigration, but also gender ideology and all kinds of things. And the left are authoritarian, so they've been trying to stamp out, even in Germany, they've been talking about just delisting, just not allowing right-wing parties to run. And you know, they're basically authoritarian communists. They're trying to stop people having a conference to discuss pretty mainstream and well-supported issues. These aren't, you know, foaming-mouthed radicals at this conference. This is mainstream politicians.
Well, absolutely. She was the Home Secretary until not recently, not long ago. Go on.
Two things. I mean, I suppose this Tehran mayor also might be keen on the issue of immigration, might have a finger on that one. I want to know whether he's still got his NatWest bank account, because that'd be funny, wouldn't it? That would really be the icing on this one's cake. But for the general story, I mean, I might not agree with the kind of things that are said in this conference, but I don't think shutting it down... You never win an argument by refusing to take place in the argument, let alone not allowing the argument to even exist. No. That doesn't seem like the way to do it. My only complaint would be National Conservative Conference when it's clearly international.
I mean, that was they had one. It was only last year, wasn't it? At the Natural History Museum, which I got confused between National History Museum and Natural Conservative, and it all became a bit fuzzy. But is this being expanded into an international movement, or is it just taken? Is it on holiday, like on the buses, and you know, Dad, you know, when they go, oh, I don't know, let's set one in Brussels. That'll be a bit different.
You're going on safari.
They're going to make being right-wing illegal. This is the way... I mean, you laugh, but they're already doing it. The police, directed by a left-wing politician, the mayor of Brussels, shut down a Conservative conference. They're going to make it illegal. They're going to try and shut down GB News. They're going to try and shut down any right-wing voice on the internet. They're taking control of all aspects in every part of society. We're just gradually encroaching into communism.
Whereas they said, and somebody pointed this out on Twitter today, that Viktor Orban, who is very much the sort of bogeyman of this mindset, allowed a conference, you know, like denying him, defying him, criticising him to take place in Budapest. There was no Budapest. Is it Budapest?
Yeah, Budapest.
It is Budapest, Hungary. Yeah. There was no attempt to close that down. You know, he allows. You might say, they might all get home and later on there'll be a knock on the door. I don't know. But anyway, Telegraph now, Leo. Scots police have applied a fairly strong filter on hate.
Yeah, so only 2 hate crime reports out of 7,000 have been pursued by the Scottish police under the new hate crime law that came through on April the 1st. So, yeah, there are thousands of calls flooding in. Almost all have been dismissed as critics have attacked the extra burden placed upon police officers in Scotland. So 7,000 complaints, and around about half were against Humza Yousaf, the First Minister, who's actually the architect of this law when he was Justice Minister, and who went on a sort of anti-white rant in the Scottish Parliament. So is then seen as being this racist. But the Police Scotland went through them. They identified 240 offences, decided that only 9 of these were worth being investigated, and all but 2 of the 9 investigations have been dismissed. And so the 2 that are left are some football fans singing a song, a sectarian song, and some anti-Semitic graffiti that was seen in Buchanan Street. And this has come at a huge, an insane cost. We're looking at, overall, we're looking at a cost of millions. If we're talking about the overtime bill for the police to deal with all these complaints, and also the government spent hundreds of thousands of pounds promoting it, which I'm sure they're very grateful to English taxpayers for funding.
Steve, what do you think? Is it likely to carry on in this vein, or do you think it's just a little bit of blowing the froth off at the beginning?
No, I think there'll be a slight uptick. I mean, only 2 hate crimes out of all of those reported, but that's because, Leo, you've not been back over the border yet, have you? So as soon as you go over there, all of a sudden there'll be a slight increase. But it's all about the wording, isn't it? It's such a badly defined law that most of this seems to be the interpretation of the police is required. No, you need the words in the law so you know if you're breaking it or not. Yeah. And I suppose if you have a law that's badly worded, is it to scare people away from it so that, I don't know whether I'm breaking a law by saying something, so I'll say nothing? That's a bit more sinister. I just can't help
but The 2 main things that I think are sinister about it, that it has shifted to a sort of subjective appreciation of whether somebody might have felt that there was hate in play, and also that it takes place in your own home. And this is the thing, if kids start, dobbing in their parents and find they can do that. It's one of the major tenets of all the great dystopian novels from 1984 onwards, that children are horrifically easily recruited into this kind of thing,
And history has shown it as well. The Chinese Cultural Revolution, the Nazis.
Absolutely.
We used to have the threat calling
we're
childline.
being invaded by aliens in 400 years' time.
So we just had the threat of calling childline if your parents don't do what you want. But now you can say, I'm going to say you said something bad about a certain ethnicity.
Do you remember, David Haddingham? Great comic. He had a wonderful routine. He goes, I do this to wind him up. The other day I called Childline, and they went, hello, Childline. And I said, oh, is it? Is it now? And they went, what do you mean? I went, I just dialed 1471 to see the last number my child had died. Come here, you little toe rag. Anyway, fantastic. Steve, Times Now. I desperately wish this was a wrestling report, but no.
J.K. Rowling, trans inclusion in misogyny law shows contempt for women.
Oh, it had slammed in the headline.
Oh, I'm with you.
J.K. Rowling slams Humza Yousaf. That was my wrestling image, sorry.
But she says the misogyny law shows contempt for women. I was thinking, what's another word that would be contempt for women? I don't know if there's probably some Greek root to it or something. But she criticised Humza Yousaf after he confirmed that everyone affected would be included. So this is trans women would be included in this. Yeah. So remember when Dominic Raab said he was against misogyny, whether it's towards a man or a woman, and we all laughed at his shiny face, didn't we? He was onto something. So a quick recap: instead of adding some protected characteristics to existing laws, Humza Yousaf gives us this hate crime bill we've just been speaking about, which will investigate absolutely anyone. It didn't include the protected characteristic of sex, which is bad because that would have included men. But instead they've got the misogyny law, which is hard to define. A couple of months ago on here, we were talking about the sports coach who referred to the interviewer who'd asked him a question as good girl. That was called misogyny. It's not going to be illegal. But don't worry, they're not leaving men out because misogyny will now include trans women as well, even though they're covered by the hate crime bill, which means if you break the misogyny law, the hate crime bill, probably the equalities one, and the sentences are done consecutively, you'll never get out.
Do you know the word for hating men?
Misandry, yeah.
Very good, you got it, yeah. And misanthropy is the hatred of all humankind, right?
Yeah.
So that's, that's my one. You can't do that because that would include you, I suppose.
I'm OK with that. I've met me.
It's reminiscent of that, the new definition. I read a very good piece today in The Critic by Alan Sokol about this, about the new definition of racism that has to be backed up by power structures. So the idea is, I suppose, is implied that that misogyny is only misogyny because power still rests with,
But this idea of power structures and not seeing people as actual individuals is so dangerous because, I mean, somebody could argue that, well, the power structures aren't allowing, straight white men to be portrayed in adverts. Yeah. So, there's a power structure that you can measurably, objectively, validate. So, yeah, then straight white men can say, well, we're the victim of a power structure.
We need a word for all of that, Stephen.
Something from the
Give
Greek.
you the Greek dictionary. Sad news now for our senior citizens, as Nicholas Parsons always used to refer to them, Leo. They're living in deprivation, squalor, misery and filth, all of which Keir Starmer, of course, is going to fix. But in the meantime...
So nearly 1 million UK pensioners are living in deprivation, official figures show. And a separate report suggests that the number of people living in poverty aged between 60 and pension age has tripled under the Tories. But this, is like, what is poverty? You think of poverty, you think of people scratching around in a shanty slum in Calcutta or something. No, basically in the UK, because they measure poverty as a relative measure, it's like, you've only got 98% of what Bill Gates has got. You're in poverty. It's a nonsense. People can be. I was in poverty, and I didn't realise I was in poverty. I thought I had plenty of money. That's how poverty works now. It's like you don't have a speedboat, and your neighbour's got a speedboat. Oh, you're in poverty. It's ridiculous. And also this so the number of people over 60 living in poverty who are not yet eligible for a state pension has tripled since the Conservatives came to power in 2010. Well, get a job.
Well, I love
60.
this.
You're 60. You're not 94. Get a job.
It says here, this is interesting, it says a lot of people who are, and the government assumes that people in their early and mid-60s can keep working and earning just like those in their 20s. Well, no, I mean, that's not new, right? That's a basic... And then it goes, this is true for lots of people, and we should celebrate those who defy harmful ageist stereotypes. But this is like you get to retire at 65. That's been the case. And if anything, people are much fitter, or at least they have the opportunity to be fitter and healthy. They're much less likely to have rickets or polio or, they may have got diabetes, and I'm not dismissing that sort of thing.
And also, you've got computers now. You can sit at a computer and move a mouse around if your hands still work.
No, I do agree with you. You overstated it, but it's true. The relative measure of poverty just allows people to always stay. It's always, people will always be in poverty as long as it is measured as a differential from the norm, right? I mean, Steve, you may have a different view.
Just because it also talks about people over the pensionable age who are in poverty, and I just want to annoy people, so I'll get some really well-written tweets with proper punctuation. Get rid of the triple lock. It is a system that factors in outliers and then leaves them baked in. Mathematically, it is a silly system, but
it's creating an extraordinary amount of resentment now from young people who will never be able to buy their own home when they see half their tax is going to pay pensioners who live in vast landed estates.
And also inequality, just quickly, inequality is a great thing. If there's no inequality, you don't have the opportunity to be better than other people.
Our very own Gordon Gekko. We're halfway through. After the break, we have deepfake photography. Sorry, not photography, pornography. I often get those mixed up. It's bad news. North Korean germ warfare, which way Western man? It's all coming after the break. See you shortly.
Hello and welcome back to the latest update from the Met Office. Some showers will continue overnight, but otherwise it turns drier with clear spells and it turns chilly in places with our air now coming from the north. That's a cold direction. And with isobars opening out as well, lighter winds will mean a greater chance of a frost. There will be widespread clear skies across the UK as the showers fade away, although one or two showers will continue across Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and the southwest, more especially for northeast Scotland, the North Sea coast as well. Some of the showers in northern Scotland will be falling as snow because it's going to be a cold night, touch of frost here and there as we start off Wednesday. But beautiful blue skies for many of us, particularly through this central swathe of the UK. I think still the north and east of Scotland, eastern England, seeing a brisk breeze from the north and some showers. Also some showers elsewhere from the word go, but generally turning drier in many places by the afternoon, albeit rather cloudy. Northern Ireland seeing rain arrive, and it will feel cold here, 7 Celsius, not much better elsewhere, 11 to 13 degrees at their highest in the south. But Thursday starts off bright once again, chilly in places, and we keep the brightness across the south and southeast well into the afternoon, whilst the cloud thickens across the north and northwest, with outbreaks of rain moving south across Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England. The rain clears up on Friday. The weekend looks very nice indeed.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. So we have deep fake pornography news now, Steve, in the Times, and a subtle difference between creation and sharing.
Yes, creating deepfake pornography to be a criminal offence. So now I actually have to film those scenes. I'm going to have to stretch first. The new legislation will punish those who digitally alter and spread the explicit images. You're right, actually, that to really trigger the law, you have to be distributing them or for the victim to be impacted by it.
Aware of it. So I suppose the key is, if you create it, then somehow it gets shared accidentally or through somebody else's agency, and they work out that it was you that created it, you'll be in trouble. Obviously, if you can create it on your own computer and nobody knows about it...
Knock yourself out. Have a great time. You're wrong, and then delete it afterwards. Get rid of it from the recycle bin as well afterwards. In fact, maybe install one of those cleaners that means you destroy the file, rather. I don't know why I'm telling you to do this.
You can just buy a Seagate hard drive, and then it'll destroy all your data after about 9 months.
So deepfake pornography, just so we're clear, is a celebrity usually whose face gets sort of mapped onto some actual pornography. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it can be a celebrity, but I think this law also is that if you're doing it specifically to attack a person effectively, it could be the action of a stalker. But there are loads of celebs in the article. Reality star Callie Jane Beach is in the article, and the picture that they use of her has a picture credit of Splash News. I didn't realise they had such specific websites.
The front page was Cathy Newman, host of Channel 4 News, of course, who famously had a brutalising encounter with Jordan Peterson a few years ago. I don't know whether that is represented in more graphic form.
I can't wait to watch her one.
So what you're saying, Leo. Anyway, Telegraph now and workplace discrimination, or is this closer to blasphemy laws?
So, yeah, saying you're a non-feminist at work could be an act of discrimination, according to a tribunal. So this is a tribunal against this guy, Mr. Legg, who alleged that he lost his job after resisting what he claimed was his female boss's agenda to promote women instead of men. So he worked at this agency for 16 years and argued that feminism was a belief system that he did not adhere to, and that as a result he was treated less fairly by his manager before being sacked. And the ruling against him, the employment judge suggested that him holding these views could be in breach of equality laws. However, you read on a bit further and it turns out he was fired for moonlighting in contravention of his contract, and then I think fired back with this, claim against against this. So, but it is worrying that the judge has said, oh, if you believe this, if you don't adhere to this new religion of feminism, then, you're a blasphemer. We're going to lead you into the torture chamber and show you the rack. And
it's really hard to unpick the story, isn't it? And he's saying the judge has said he does believe that being against feminism, not believing in it, is a genuine position that this man holds, but it's not to be taken as a serious or weighty belief or something?
Yeah. So he says that he's sure that this guy believes that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he says it's not weighty, almost as if saying that there's nothing to argue against because the judge defines feminism as equality for all. So how can you be against that without being discriminatory? But you're right, it all comes down to the fact he was moonlighting as a counsellor. This is surely he was making money. So he's claiming he's working full hours and then during the day being a counsellor. I'm presuming to, like, divorced dudes. They probably... What a great counsellor. If you're straight out of a divorce, get someone who goes, I'll tell you who's to blame on this. Feminists. They'd be making a mint.
He'll be on X soon with videos of him driving an Aston Martin down the road in Dubai. North Korea now, Steve. They've been quiet for a while, but this in the Times could propel them back to the top of the evil Hot 100.
Yeah, North Korea using genetic engineering in biological weapons program. Is this really what Kim Jong-un should be getting his top scientists doing, copying bioweapons? I bet he's got at least one team copying Ozempic. But the reclusive state has the capability to produce bacteria, viruses, toxins. It's anthrax, smallpox. That part of the article, yeah, scary, like sprays and pens and stuff. The important bit, though, is the UN's panel of experts issues a report on which countries are breaking sanctions and whatnot, but they won't be doing it soon because their mandate won't be renewed because Russia has blocked it at the UN, which... This is the important part of the story. This is China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. I'm calling them the CRINK nations. That's not catching on. I've done it 3 times on this. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea.
Nice. CRINK
nations.
Although you could call them NERC and make the Korea, like, silent.
And also, that's the Democratic Republic. You know, you could have put all those in. I'll work on that later.
Yeah.
But this needs bringing up all the time because they are ganging up. Russia's using North Korean weapons. And because of this now... there's not going to be the restriction on North Korea making some of these biological weapons.
It is interesting, isn't it? One of the major factors of one of the major symptoms of the Cold War was the use of proxy nations and so on, the way that you could never exactly point your finger at Russia and go, you've done that. This seems to be building again now. Proxy operations, Iran, obviously, in Gaza and Lebanon and so on.
Yeah, and there is a sort of axis of evil as well. I mean, China, Russia, Iran... North Korea.
Well, they certainly say, some people say it's the not bipolar, multipolar world, right? We've come to the end of America as the top superpower. They had 30 years after the end of the Soviet Union, but we're moving back into another multipolar state. And it's incumbent upon us to understand the motive, not merely, demonise, but to try and get inside the minds of these people and see exactly how they see it from their point of view, because, they don't feel that necessarily America has the automatic moral supremacy. What do you think?
Well, America still has the economic power, and it will. It will continue. Like, China is actually going to tail off. They're facing a demographic cliff because of the one-child policy, and people just aren't having kids there now. And also, any sort of autocracy just calcifies a country's economy eventually. But the real problem is, in the West, we're moving towards that sort of autocratic system, as we've seen in Brussels today. So, previously we thought that as China and countries like that, as they got rich, the people in a burgeoning middle class would demand democracy. In fact, it's going the other way. We're becoming more like China.
That's right, and I think the technology is what's driving that. But anyway, Daily Star now, Leo. It used to be said that for many, a cold and hungry young man, there are worse places to be than prison. This goes for rural pensioners now as well.
Yeah. So this bloke is refusing to pay council tax until Pothole Road is fixed, and he says he's happy to go to prison. This is a frustrated 78-year-old. He needs some of that deepfake stuff. But Ronnie Wilkie, who says he's become so sick of the state of the crater-filled country lane in Herefordshire where he lives that he's promised to stop paying council tax until something is done. He says his council tax has gone up again. He's fed up with it. He's even offered to give out free champagne to anyone who knows of a more potholed road. But yeah, council tax has gone up again, and obviously it's to pay for diversity officers. I don't know why they can't mince up the diversity officers and fill the road with them.
You can't say mince, that's offensive.
Do you have any potholes where you live, Steve? It was being bad a few months ago, but it's cleared up now in Brighton.
On the way back from a gig in Littlehampton about a month ago, I hit a pothole and it nearly wrote off that car. Thankfully, it's my rubbish small cart thing, but I couldn't get the locking wheel nuts off. Then I had to get someone around to spot weld it on to remove it. I'm so furious with potholes. But I can't remember exactly where it was, so I can't. I'm not going to drive all the way back down to Littlehampton.
There was really bad weather conditions. I remember a few months ago, and then there were the specific conditions. It might have just been relentless rain that caused potholes, but now it seems to have cleared up a bit.
The cold helps, though. It's that freeze-thaw cracking, isn't it, where the ice expands and then the water goes further down.
Anyway, well, we stand in solidarity with Ronnie Wilkie. Meanwhile, Steve, as the saying goes, when someone's lock screen tells you who they are, believe them the first time.
Teachers dismiss schoolboys Osama bin Laden phone screensaver because he was often trying to shock people before the FBI caught him planning a terror attack. Of course, they did. We all went through that phase, didn't we? didn't we? Back in the 80s, I remember loads of people at school had the poster of Jerry Adams scratching his bum while playing tennis. The 80s were a crazy time. Yeah. But it says the teen, who can't be named, but keep an eye on his phone, you'll work out who he is, then tried to plan an attack on the Isle of Wight, but thwarted himself because he realised he couldn't drive. Gen Z, man. Do you know, I probably got an Uber to try and do it. Instead, he planned to slash the throat of a teacher in his special educational unit. He called him a kefir, which is the fermented drink. And he left a note saying, do you think you could commit such major sins such as eating pork? Major? They were cocktail sausages on the end of little sticks, looking like a hedgehog. The 80s were a terrible time.
It's exactly what we were talking about 5 minutes ago, isn't it? How a radicalised teen is the most terrifying force. Yeah. You know, they become absolutely draconian, dogmatic. They see no shades of grey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fortunately, they're teenagers, so they're useless. I mean, this is he abandoned the plan because he couldn't drive or find a vehicle. This is the problem with this generation of terrorists. Like Al-Qaeda taught themselves to fly planes.
Yeah. Absolutely, although not to land. 3 down, 1 to go. Don't tax bras. Cats can genuinely drive you crazy, and some semi-naked beauties for you to evaluate guilt-free. Objectify away. We will see you in a couple of minutes.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
It's a remarkable story, isn't it?
Amazing.
Extraordinary. And also, she was unflappable, apparently, the Princess Royal.
She's
just
brilliant.
refused to get out of the car and said, I'm not going anywhere. Extraordinary. Well, Jim Beaton was awarded the George Cross for protecting the princess, and delighted to say joins us now, along with the former head of royalty protection, Di Davis. Jim, you won't remember, but I met you some time ago at the Imperial War Museum when Princess Anne was opening an exhibition to do with the George Cross, and you were there reunited with her. And you told me then what great admiration you had for the princess, cool under fire, but you didn't do so badly yourself.
It was probably my job. And also, I had a wee bit of police training, not very much, but a little bit, whereas Princess Anne had nothing. And yet, the way she displayed it, you would have thought she'd been highly trained to deal with any type of that situation.
Even though you'd had some training, you took 3 bullets for the princess. You effectively stood between her and a deranged gunman.
Well, I was supposed to be a protection officer, really, so I just tried to fuddle about. You must remember that back in 1974, there was no communication, and we were extremely lucky that Michael Hills, who was outside Clarence House and nearby, had got one of the fast police radios, or radios on his shoulder, so he was able to send a message out. Otherwise, we would have just been relying on the good old public to phone in and say there's something happening.
Yeah.
So times have changed drastically.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me. My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. Leo, we have the last section now. Interesting intervention in the Times here from the Society of Radiographers, who seem to be trying to spice their image up a little bit.
Yeah, so bras boost health and should not come under VAT, say radiographers. So the Society of Radiographers says bras, which is the clothing things that women wear under their the
brassiere.
Yeah, that's got wires and stuff in it that holds their boobs in place. They say it's a necessity and helps prevent musculoskeletal problems, so should not be subject to the tax, much like period products. So they should be subsidised. Well, what about boxer shorts? Because they're better for your, I believe, your testicles. Support. Yeah, they're better
for the aerated ones. Yeah,
and allow them to cool naturally, as opposed to, you know, if you're wearing budgie smugglers, your testicles are clamped tight against your body and overheat and kill all the sperm.
This is true. The thing is, of course, Rishi Sunak, who is in the head of this government that is bringing in his legislation, is able to avoid VAT by wearing children's clothing. So it's a bit like, yet again, he doesn't have to confront you, know, he's protected. Yeah. But this is, I do find this quite interesting. Let's say bras are regarded as having health benefits and should therefore be, but also you can absolutely buy luxury ones, can't you? Yeah. There's a firm called Rigby and Peller that my wife occasionally patronises, is that the word? And I mean, they
well done. That's a nice bra. You tried well.
I mean, vast sums of money are spent on constructions that would obviously grace any fashion runway.
They're very complicated.
So I think maybe you get the first 20 quid VAT free.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean? If you want to buy NHS bras, you know what I mean?
Or get the VAT off if it's got a clasp that's easy to get off with one hand.
But the idea of having VAT on garments, therefore calling them luxuries, and yet if I walk around naked, I get asked to get off that train carriage.
That's true.
So clearly it's more of a necessity for some people.
Yeah. Metro now, Steve, there's a part of me that wants to dismiss this story as nonsense, but another part of me, well, you get the picture.
A pet cat could double your chance of schizophrenia, which genuinely is worrying for me, because I've got 2 cats, which is one for both of me.
Are you sure? Yeah.
But researchers from the University of Queensland in Australia found that those exposed to cats before the age of 25 are twice as likely to develop schizophrenia.
Yeah.
And it's because of this parasite, the Toxoplasma gondii. We talked about this on the show before. It's the amazing one, the one that when it gets in the brain of mice, makes mice no longer afraid of cats.
Yeah.
So they just go, come on, I've been eaten. And that's how it passes on. Apparently in humans, it can change whether you find cat urine disgusting.
Wow.
So I keep having a little just to make sure, or hate it. So I'm still fine.
That would be a canary in the coal mine for you.
It would be. And it lists in the article the symptoms of schizophrenia: losing interest in everyday activities, not wanting to look after yourself, trying to avoid people and feeling disconnected. So being a Gen X man.
Or being a cat owner. I mean, those map very closely onto cat ownership, like the old cat lady, the mad cat people, those, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think also having a pet cat can double your chances of being a single woman.
Yeah. There's a lot of correlation going on here. Leo, TikTok news now in The Independent. Sad day for people that have heard of Kyle Marisa Roth.
So this controversial TikTok personality, who I hadn't heard of before today, but now I'm obsessed with, Kyle Marisa Roth is dead at 36. So she's known for her Hollywood blind items, which is a weird phrase for basically sort of Hollywood gossip that is coded, so I guess it stops you. You know, they don't
get sued.
The specific. So instead of saying, you know, for example, P Diddy, they'll say D Piddy or call him Puff Daddy or something that you
P Diddyphile.
Yeah, you can never work out. And she, funnily enough, she just done a bunch of videos about P Diddy, there have been houses searched. I mean, this is a real thing. P Diddy has been the subject of these allegations. Men as well as women apparently have
So you think there might be a hit job? Is that a suggestion?
That's what people are talking about online.
She's had her own health has been. She had a cancer, I think, of some kind of rectal cancer or something that she spoke about. She's talked about massive panic attacks, but then of course this could be drama. What do you think, Steve?
I'd never heard of her. I would definitely not make the same accusations that Leo's just made.
I didn't make any accusations. I said people are talking about it.
I don't even know who P. Diddy is, just in case I can get sued for that. No, I must admit, this TikTok thing, I mean, I'm not normally into the TikTok, so I've absolutely no... When you get a headline that someone you've never heard of has died at 36...
Yeah.
You know this show is broadcast on TikTok?
No, it's not. It's not a thing.
It's close to midnight, as Michael Jackson once sang. Time for some adult content now from the Metro.
World's first AI beauty pageant unveiled, and we're not impressed, says the judgmental Metro. I'm impressed because these are pictures of people that you actually can deepfake.
Yeah.
Because surely that's legal. This is the
They're going to bring it up on the screen for us. Go on.
FanView Miss AI. There's a prize of 20 grand.
Wow.
There's
nothing illegal about that. I'm going to put my glasses on for the first time.
That bra should definitely be VAT free. That is doing some lifting.
But, and that's just a regular lampstand. That's us, isn't it? Yeah. Is that you in the middle there? You look like Wolverine, Steve.
I think it is.
Yeah.
How come I look like a woman?
You do. You look like you would be taking Philip Schofield's place.
I'm like the old Miss Moneypenny.
You'd be gentle.
These are courtesy of, what's his name? My Opinion or something like that? Yeah, this chap knocks these up after every show. They're always slightly themed. I'm not sure.
As long as he doesn't distribute them, that's perfectly legal. Whatever he's doing with it.
Deepfake, I would quite welcome the surgery that went along with it. Finally, we have very quickly to get through this one, Guardian, to close. Leo, sounds like a real page turner.
So, a political prisoner in Belarus has shed light on the country's brutal prison system by smuggling out her story written on pieces of toilet paper, which in itself shows how brutal the prison system is. Yeah. If their toilet paper is so tough, you can write a story on it. It's like, remember at primary school, you got that stuff that was like greaseproof paper.
Yes.
There it is there. Oh, my God, Port Authority toilet paper right there.
So they are using that. It usually comes in a little sort of tissue dispenser, doesn't it, rather than a roll?
Yeah. It's like completely watertight.
It was so brutal that they made us use that at primary school, wasn't it? What was the idea?
Yeah, it was like if you wipe with it, it was like Wolverine.
It just moves it around a little bit. Slices up your...
around and slices you a bit.
You get a very clean bottom, but a messy neck.
Anti-steal. The whole point of that is to make it too miserable to steal. I don't think kids are being sent into their primary schools. You don't come home with a roll of the good stuff tonight. The show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look at Wednesday's front pages. We have the Daily Mail, victory for the bravest head teacher in Britain. Telegraph, leadership hopefuls defy Sunak over smoking ban. Guardian, Tory divisions exposed as Sunak's smoking ban moves a step closer. The Times, police look at multiple allegations over Rayner. iNews, Sunak gives Netanyahu a warning from world leaders. And finally, the Daily Star, lettuce Liz. Plucky Daily Star lettuce is part of the evil London elite, she says. Those were your front pages. That's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Leo Kirsten, Steve N. Allen. Cressida Wetton will be here tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Steve and Lewis Schaefer. If you're watching at 5 a.m., stay tuned for breakfast. Otherwise, thank you for your company. Good night.
Warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome back to the latest update from the Met Office. Some showers will continue overnight, but otherwise it turns drier with clear spells and it turns chilly in places with our air now coming from the north. That's a cold direction. And with isobars opening out as well, lighter winds will mean a greater chance of a frost. There will be widespread clear skies across the UK as the showers fade away, although one or two showers will continue across Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and the southwest, more especially for northeast Scotland, the North Sea coast as well. Some of the showers in northern Scotland will be falling as snow because it's going to be a cold night, touch of frost here and there as we start off Wednesday. But beautiful blue skies for many of us, particularly through this central swathe of the UK. I think still the north and east of Scotland, eastern England, seeing a brisk breeze from the north and some showers. Also some showers elsewhere from the word go, but generally turning drier in many places by the afternoon, albeit rather cloudy. Northern Ireland seeing rain arrive.